Several weeks ago, I resolved to surprise my wife with an evening out devoid of children. My parents reside approximately an hour and a half from us, and I have organized for the children to spend the weekend with them. Typically, when I visit my folks, I am absent till the late evening. We remain there throughout the day and depart around dinner time. This time, I was dropping off the children and promptly returning home to surprise my wife so we could depart as quickly as possible. I had secured reservations at an upscale restaurant and intended to visit other establishments for cocktails beforehand. I departed at 8:30 and returned to our housing development before 12:30. Upon entering my street, I observed a vehicle stationed in front of my residence. I failed to identify it. I presumed it was an individual observing the neighbors, as it is not uncommon for someone to park in front of our residence. I parked many homes away, intending to covertly enter the residence and surprise my wife, rather than using the driveway and accessing the garage. I entered through a basement door. I remained as silent as possible. Nonetheless, upon entering, I observed her producing sounds from the floor above. Upon first hearing it, I presumed she was alone, possibly engaging in some personal reflection. I intended to respect her privacy and avoid causing her embarrassment, so I planned to return to my car and proceed to the garage, signaling my presence at home. I then heard a male voice. I promptly experienced nausea. My heart felt as though it might burst from my chest. Articulating my emotions during this moment is challenging. I resolved to ascend the steps. I had no inclination to confront them. I merely sought to ascertain the situation. I ascended the steps gradually and silently. The door was ajar. The kitchen was vacant, although I discerned their presence in the living room. The sounds clearly indicated the situation at this juncture. I could not observe the living room without being seen by them. I retrieved my phone and launched the camera application. I placed my phone at the corner of a wall. This section is exceedingly challenging to compose. I observed my wife in the company of an unfamiliar man. I will refrain from elaborating on their actions, but I believe you can deduce the implications. I commenced documenting it, believing that I required a documentation for any future endeavors. I remained stationary in my kitchen, observing the events transpire on my phone screen. I had an overwhelming urge to shout, yet somehow I became entirely immobilized. This persisted for several minutes. She ultimately dismounted him and remarked about proceeding to the bedroom, after which they ascended the stairs. She remarked on the remaining time they had. I entered the living room and discovered the man's trousers. I removed his wallet and photographed his driver's license. I am now aware of his name and address. I have never encountered him. I am unaware of how my wife is acquainted with him. I exited the house as I had entered it. I returned to my vehicle and wept like the pitiable individual I am. I choose to view the video to confirm its recording. I observed everything. I remained in my car for a minimum of 30 minutes. I was unable to drive to my parents' house to retrieve the children, as I would need to provide an explanation for my actions. I resolved to enter the driveway, open the garage, and feign a surprise visit for her. I leisurely entered the house. I generated considerable noise. Upon encountering her, she appeared somewhat agitated, inquiring about my presence at home, among other things. She was attired in a robe and stated that she was merely preparing for a bath. I informed her of my objectives, and she appeared enthusiastic. She served us each a glass of wine and suggested we engage in pregame festivities prior to preparing ourselves. I believe I did not converse extensively. She escorted me to the living room. I am not proud of what I permitted to occur. I observed the man stealthily descending the stairs into the basement. Nevertheless, I refrained from speaking or intervening, allowing my wife to persist with her actions. Since that day, I have viewed the footage of her numerous times. I am unable to determine my next course of action. She seemed to be aware that something is up with me, as she has inquired several times about my well-being. I have feelings of worthlessness, and whenever I reach a low point, I rewatch that video. I believe I have viewed it no fewer than 10 times daily since I discovered them.